Hey guys, hope you guys are doing well. How's everyone doing? Long time actually no streaming. Game week 21 was an okay week, nothing too special for me really. I had the Brighton captaincy, that was about it. That was pretty much the difference between having a good game week and a bad one. Hey Henry, how are you doing? So Rohit actually starts off with a question, big dilemma, between Ronaldo and Bruno. Have a feeling Ronaldo will only play one game. My thoughts. So the one concern I have with Bruno is, for me, Ronaldo makes a lot more sense in terms of long-term strategy because you're looking at very good fixtures until 28, whereas at this point in time, especially with the formations that Rangnick has kind of produced, I don't really think Bruno is suited to the system whatsoever, playing as the left cam or right cam. And that's kind of my main issue with Bruno at this point in time, where, as we can see, he's even become a bench option as well. So whilst you have, for example, a concern that Ronaldo might not be able to play, let's say, back-to-back, within 2 to 3 days break, I just think Ronaldo is a much more consistent option and much more viable. And you also have the added kind of importance of penalties too, in a double game week fixture like this, where there's a high chance Ronaldo will do well. And honestly, I think with Ronaldo's physical fitness, he really can play 2 games. So I would, if I was to spend as much money into a United player, I'd rather pick the one who has better form under the current kind of tactical structure. You need to replace Salah. I completely understand. And maybe if, let's say, you really wanted to, let's say if you wanted to stay away from Ronaldo and you wanted to keep Salah as soon as possible, or go back to Salah as soon as possible, then what you could do is maybe downgrade, go into a cheap midfielder at this point in time, something like a Brighton player who has a double, and then you can move away from Salah and get him very, very quickly for someone else in your team. Yeah, this week is incredibly stressful. I actually made an early transfer to Maddison. Huge mistake, obviously, but at the same time, when I look at my team, I don't really think I would have gone for any other double game week player. I wasn't going to go to Bruno because I don't really think Bruno is that viable right now under the current structure. And then for me, I just think the chances with Leicester having potentially a double game week in 23, I was okay with going for Maddison anyways, because I'm not really a big fan of Lucas Moura, unfortunately. So as the team stands, I've got a very, very weird bench structure where Reguilon clearly is second on the bench. But this is really if it seems confirmed that the Arsenal game is postponed. I might just swap around Laporte and Reguilon for now and keep the team like so. But let me know what you guys think. Yeah, it doesn't feel like, I don't think it is a double game week, to be honest. It's hard to say that there's this chance, for example, Arsenal could have a blank. However, yeah, wishing everyone good luck for this game week as well. I think the Maddison price rise was 6.8 to 6.9. Sterling out, Bruno in. Is there any kind of reason why you're going Sterling out? Is it because there's rumors that he has COVID? Malcolm, there were no price changes. Yeah, how are you doing? I'm good, Musa. You guys can send a picture on Twitter and I'll probably respond in a quick second. Jordan says he's a bit stumped. He's going to do Son to Maddison, but not sure what to do now. Maybe De Bruyne for Chelsea, plus following fixtures or roll the transfer. Also, will Foden play? So I've got no kind of confirmation on whether Foden will play. I think there's a high chance, probably 80%, that he will play. However, do remember that he is maybe recovering from COVID, so we don't exactly know what the deal is. I don't really want a free hit because I just think there are much better double game weeks in the future where it's probably better saving our chips. And one of my strategies, of course, was to go for a bench boost. But at this point in time, I'm not really sure I really want to be bench boosting when there are so many singles, even though everyone in theory has a good fixture. And for example, some more fixtures can be in doubt, such as the Reguilon game versus Arsenal. So you're still captaining. Yeah, I'm what do you mean I'm still captaining Dennis even with one game? Has the second Burnley game been postponed? Another thing about the free hit as well is I don't think there are too many good doubles now, especially if, let's say, the Spurs game is postponed, then really there aren't many interesting doubles whatsoever. Greenwood or Trossard? Probably Trossard. Start Dallo or Dawson? Probably Dallo, to be quite honest. I just don't think that with Dawson, there's a chance, I would say, that they lose a clean sheet versus Leeds anyways. And at least Dallo with one game might be interesting. I know we've seen Wan-Bissaka start 2 to 3 games in a row, so that's a tough one there. maybe if you, I would say maybe there's a little bit more risk towards Dalot because there's a high chance he could get 1 point if, let's say, or 2 points because he features, let's say, off the bench in 2 games. But I do think there's a chance that he does start because it's not like Wan-Bissaka has played exceptionally well. Yeah, I understand the chances are high for the game to be postponed, but there's not much we can really do. I would definitely still play Maddison over Martinelli, just because there's a chance that the derby could be postponed. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I suppose, in that case, right, where you would just get Maddison anyways. But I still think Maddison has the better fixture playing at home. How Burnley will be fit till the second game, only 3 days between games. I mean, it only really takes one or two players being fit. That's kind of the line that's being drawn right now. If Dalot has an ankle injury, then yeah, go for Dawson. Okay, let's say if the Burnley game is kind of dead in the water, what are your plans for captaincy? Because, I mean, when I look at my team, very hard to pick a captain at this point in time. I don't really want to captain De Gea. I think that's crazy. And even if, let's say, Dennis has a single game week, he is playing versus one of the worst defenses in Newcastle. So that's kind of what I like about it. I could also go Calvert-Lewin if I was feeling really, really ballsy, but I'm not so sure about that right now. Best captain out of De Gea, Trent, Jota, King. I'd probably go for Jota if you really think that, for example, the second Burnley game is to be postponed. Half my bench boost gone, but too late to back down. Have you already locked it in? Yeah, I see what you mean. What do I think of Varane? I just think he's a little bit overpriced. So, and also, yeah, I mean, ultimately their defense just hasn't been that great. And I don't think United really have a priority to keep clean sheets. They've always almost played around outscoring opponents. Not too much has changed lately. The fixtures are still great. But if I ever had to pick a United player who's nailed, I would just go for De Gea, who's actually cheaper than Varane, right? You're really torn between DCL and Ronaldo. In terms of dropping DCL for Ronaldo, or are you talking captaincy? Who to start between Foden or Gallagher? Gallagher out for a hit. So Gallagher has a tough game. It's obviously a derby game between Brighton and Crystal Palace, but Crystal Palace did actually play exceptionally well the last time they played Brighton. So that's one of the things that makes me quite confident that Gallagher is a decent pick. You think the safer captain picks De Gea? I mean, at this point in time, though, like, what happens if, let's say, because Brentford are quite low in terms of numbers, right? They've got players going to AFCON, they've got injuries. At what point does that game potentially be postponed as well? I just think that, yeah, I'm just not a huge, I don't think De Gea has some sort of massive ceiling, unless I'm, misunderstanding something. Can you free hit? I mean, if you'd like to, yeah. I mean, we have had 2 free hits this season to use, so you can use it. I don't have well, in terms of Twitter, I think I've got kind of new DMs off, but I'll turn that back on soon if we run out of tweets. It's just that sometimes I can't keep up with the load. But let's go quickly with Ashton's kind of comments. So he says, "What should I do?" To be quite honest, when I'm looking at Ashton's team, I'm actually quite happy with how it looks. I wouldn't really suggest anything particular, because as I said, the only thing here that might be glaringly obvious is that Dennis has a nice game. But as we have mentioned, the Burnley game could be postponed. It is a 3-day kind of overhang, and that's going to be very tricky. So there's not real need to take that risk, especially when we know Everton, Norwich, West Ham and Leeds don't have any kind of particular situations that make them close towards postponement. But things can change very, very quickly this week. So I would probably keep this team the same. As far as Azumi, desperately need my help. Got 2 free transfers, Salah to Jota, Vardy to Cristiano. I think that's very logical. I actually really like those moves because, I mean, ultimately you're banking on the double Watford, which I love. There's plenty of money to go around actually, so a move back to Salah in maybe 2 to 3 weeks time is actually very reasonable. As far as the rest of the team, I'd probably actually look towards maybe moving away from Rudiger and Livramento in the near future. The double keeper is a tricky situation, but to be fair, I don't think you can be upset with having Ramsdale on your team. So this person's asking if they should do 2 free transfers. Was thinking of a wildcard, but not the right move yet. To be honest, the the only reason why I would wildcard in this team structure is if the North London derby is off, because at that point you're staring at two midfielders, two forwards, and then four defenders who aren't particularly great. So I would definitely wildcard in that situation. It's a weird one because he's got two free transfers as well. So there's obviously a potential to actually just go for some very simple moves. I would actually probably just consider just swapping Benrahma and Saka around for maybe a Brighton midfielder, and then someone else. The thing is, what do you guys think about having Salah in your teams right now? For the players who still have Salah in their teams, especially since the midfield situation is not so interesting, there's no real need to actually expend your money in the midfield. Are a lot of people keeping their kind of players? Felipe says, you only have 3 double game week players, Kane, King, Alonso. Should you take out a -4 to take should you take a -4 to take out Son from Moura, Greenwood / Trossard? Who else would I consider? So for me, Kane, King, Alonso is great. In fact, I think 3 double game week players is already good enough. Should you take a -4 to take out Son from Moura, Greenwood, Trossard? I would actually probably have a look back into your team. I would look at the single game week players and kind of ask yourself the question of whether they actually have a good single game week game. And if any of the players within your starting 11 this week aren't good, then I would take the -4 to go out of Son. I wouldn't necessarily go out of Moura, and the reason why is because you already have Kane in your team. And so with Kane, you kind of already cover the risk of having a Lucas Moura. I don't think that's actually necessary. For me, Lucas Moura is a good differential to try and kind of peg towards people who have Kane this week. Kane's ownership is not particularly high. I believe, for example, a lot of people have gone still for Ronaldo over Kane. So it's nice to have Lucas Moura, but I don't think it's necessary because you have Kane, who already has low ownership and should be a differential for you this week. As far as Greenwood and Trossard, just don't think that they're really exceptionally good options. I don't really love... Maybe Trossard could be okay because he's not that pricey, but I wouldn't spend too much money into going for Greenwood. His role is not really defined in this kind of Man United team yet, and I haven't seen anything in game to actually let me know that he would be an interesting kind of double game week pick. So I would actually keep it as it is, especially if the rest of the single game week players you have are good, and I would just keep it simple. You've got Dennis as captain. Is it worth the risk? Or are you saying it is worth the risk? I mean, I think it could be. It's tough to say. Jake's wildcarded while being drunk. Fair enough. Who'd be better for the team? I'd probably go for Ronaldo, obviously, with the double game week. To be quite honest, if you have the money, and because you are wildcarding, in theory, you should be able to maybe just make one simple transfer in 23, or even roll the transfer. And by the time 24 rolls around, hopefully you can get a double transfer out of Ronaldo if you no longer are interested in Ronaldo. But Ronaldo's also quite a good keeper until 28. So as we've seen with the kind of United fixtures, if you look at, for example, De Gea's fixtures, I mean, they're pretty much great until this Man City game here. So owning Ronaldo for 24, 25, 26, 27 look great. West Ham, I mean, that's an arguably tough game, but still some very, very, very simple, easy games for Ronaldo to hopefully score, and enough rest and kind of breaks in between with his kind of level of fitness for me to actually say that he's probably worth it. I might make a reconsideration of whether I want to go into Ronaldo later, but that really just comes down to if there's any kind of surplus news in terms of AFCON and stuff. But my general plan is let's say if I had a free transfer next week, to apply that back onto someone like Gray, who doesn't have the best fixture versus Aston Villa. I know Gray has great fixtures here, but I already have DCL kind of covering Everton, and he's definitely the talisman there. So my plan is really to move out of Gray and to go into someone like a Foden next week, and then gradually spend the rest of my money back into getting Salah on the team and things like that. Am I playing bench boost? Not right now. You bought Madison yesterday night, Radar incoming. I mean, I don't think so. I still think, if you actually look, for example, a little bit more short term, these games have to be replayed. So if we actually look at the Premier League, right? Let's look at the league table together. So Leicester, for example, is actually very, very behind a team like City. So they're 3 games down. Let's say like the most amount of games you could have played right now is 21. So Leicester have to kind of make up for it soon, sometime in the future. And those were very nice games that should be rescheduled for Leicester. So they've got 3. Burnley's another team that are really far down. Watford as well. And let's say if Watford and Burnley get cancelled, it does make sense to try and have as many assets from these kind of teams possible. Leicester, Everton, Burnley, Newcastle. Obviously, Everton have a game versus Norwich, but they could still have a rescheduled game sometime in the future, especially since the game versus Leicester was cancelled. So, in my opinion, it does actually bode quite well for you owning Madison, because in the short term there should be some sort of reschedules of the games, and we could get continuous postponements until the end of the season. I don't really know exactly how the COVID situation will kind of be addressed, but there's nothing we can really do. Is there any postponement for the Spurs match? Nothing's been confirmed so far as the North London derby. We can actually have a look at the news. Yeah, so I mean it's still still under consideration. Doesn't really seem like there's been any additional update. The problem, of course, is that we are approaching the deadline in roughly an hour and 10 minutes. So, incredibly tough. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think the game will be postponed or not? Sheriff, think of getting in Trossard for Son and Ronaldo for Antonio for -4, keeping Salah on the bench. I mean, I'm not a big fan of going Ronaldo for Antonio for a -4, but if you want to do that, that's fine. Is that because you've heard the news that Antonio has a knock? I kind of like that -4. As I don't really know who's on your bench at this point in time. I'm not really a big fan of keeping Salah on the bench. That's a lot of money. But I know Son is out for even more, so I'm happy with the Trossard move. That's fine. Son Tamora, you've got Gray, Bowen, Silva, Jota. Yeah, I think that's. I think I like the Son Tamora move if you don't already have Kane in your team. I just wouldn't triple up in that sense with Spurs players, especially since the next game week is going to be a tough match versus Chelsea. Is Dennis safe? I mean, he's not a safe captain. He's not a safe captain at all. But this week we don't really have safe captains, do we? Very, very tough to pick captains. I think a safe captain is potentially Ronaldo. Kane is a tough one because that game could be postponed. Can't Arsenal choose to not play? Yeah, I think there's a high possibility that Arsenal could have that game postponed. Does Antonio have a knock? That's apparently the insider news from West Ham, that both that Dawson and Antonio have knocks, but I'm not sure whether that's true. 7.5 mid. You've got Bruno, Smith Rowe, Moura, Trossard. I wouldn't go for anyone else this week. Are you looking? I mean, at this point, I guess it might be someone like Mount, but he's a little bit outside your price range, isn't he? Drop Son for Mount or Fernandes? Probably just go for Mount, to be quite honest. For me, it's just there's more of a chance that Mount plays 180 minutes than there is Fernandes to play 180 minutes, and that's kind of my decision making there. But you still might have to take Mount out of the team. Jorginho or Kovacic, I mean, I'd probably pick Jorginho if you really want to go for a crazy ambitious bet that Chelsea will get penalties this week. Yeah, Antonio got banged up in the cup game. James to Spurs, Wolves, or Brighton defender. I'd probably go for a Brighton defender. At this point in time, I think Spurs, with the North London derby potentially being in doubt, that's a bit of a rough one. They're also missing Eric Dyer in that game, so that's going to be a little bit of a concern from a defensive point of view. And with Wolves or Brighton defend, I think Wolves is a much more consistent, solid team. But if you want to capitalize on the double game week, I'd probably go for a Brighton defender such as Cucurella. Best Son replacement at this point in time. I mean, I think that the most like-for-like replacement is just going to go for more to be going for Moura. But as I have mentioned a couple times, I wouldn't go Moura if you already have Kane in your team. If you don't have Kane, then go for Moura. If you have Kane, then I would probably go for someone like Trossard. The thing is, Trossard seems to have slightly better fixtures in the short term than someone like Mount. So he has a little bit more staying power in your team. So if we actually look at Mount together, one of the issues that Mount deals with is the impending blanks and the fact that the games really aren't that good anyways. I imagine that Chelsea will actually win this game versus Tottenham. I think Chelsea have a fantastic record versus Tottenham. I don't really think much will change there. Mount seems to make a lot more sense after this kind of IWC run is over, and maybe we can look at Mount in our teams then. But for now, I wouldn't really look at Mount too much. If you're free hitting, then it kind of makes sense to go for Mount. Trossard, yeah, so he has a tough game in terms of the actual double itself, bar Palace, and then he has one blank, but still much more better games in the short term, where he's got Leicester, Watford, Burnley, Aston Villa. As we were kind of looking at with Mount, he doesn't really have good games until 28, so that's kind of the toss-up there. I think Trossard is quite sensible. What's my lineup? It's probably going to be something like this. But if we get some late news that the North London derby is cancelled, I'm going to swap Laporte with Reguilon, and we'll call it a day there. And Dennis is probably still going to be my captain. Yeah, I can't be messaged on Twitter because I kind of have DM requests off. I'm going to quickly respond to some Twitter. If I'm planning to do something more, I don't know what else to do. I wouldn't do ESR to Gray right now because I think that I wouldn't say Gray is that much of a talisman to be worth it. For me, it was just kind of making sure that I got a little bit of an advantage in the double. Unfortunately, of course, the game was postponed. But at this point in time, I wouldn't necessarily go into Gray. I'd be more interested in going for DCL in the short term. But I think your team looks fine. You have enough playing players to cover you in this point in time. Maybe you have to kind of play a 4-3-3. I don't think that's necessarily too bad. I think that's still pretty much okay. So that would be Cancelo, Reguilon, Rudiger, Trent, Bowen, Bernardo, and then Lucas Moura, and then going for Ronaldo, Antonio, Kane. I think that's totally fine. So Adam's going for transfers. Is this a free hit? Right, okay, yeah. Should you go Kane? You're scared that Watford Burnley could be postponed. Fair enough. I would probably I'd still prefer Team 2, to be quite honest. I think Kane is relatively safe. I'm just not sure if the money to be put over Fernandes is actually worth it. But ultimately this week, I think on a free hit, Fernandes makes sense. I'm just thinking whether you can fit Mount into this team. Because I'm not a huge fan of Fernandes, and I wonder whether we drop him for Mount. Because I don't really like the double up of Brighton defense this week. I think that there's a possibility that they lose both clean sheets. Ultimately, it's still Chelsea, and the last time I watched Brighton versus Crystal Palace, it was very one-sided towards Crystal Palace. So I'm a little bit concerned with that. Obviously, this is going to be Lamptey first bench, I imagine. 3-4-3. Yeah, I guess we probably just live with that. I don't think maybe missing out on Mount would be something that hurts too much. But it's up to you if you want to go for Fernandes. Should I do Emerson to Cucurella? He may only have one game. The fixtures are terrible. I would just do Son to Bruno, to be quite honest. I don't think you need to do another transfer as well. I know Emerson doesn't have the greatest of games, but I'm kind of worried more about the fact that you have Cancelo on your bench. I'd be a bit worried about that. Yeah, and free hit or -4. -4 for who? I'm confused. Why do we need to necessarily -4? Can't we just play Alonso and Ronaldo and call it a day? Hey Fran, wanted to get your thoughts on your free hit and startup squad. Do you believe you should make any changes? I would go for a Brighton midfielder, to be quite honest. I'm not sure why we'd have Lucas Moura on the bench. I'd prefer him over Maddison at this point in time, given the current news. Otherwise, I think it makes sense, like this team. I just don't, I also think bench-wise, it's a bit too deep. Like, do we need to be spending money on players like Lookman and Lowton? You can actually afford to have a weaker bench, right? Because you're free hitting. Do you bring in someone for Madison once Salah in game week 24, so probably someone cheap. Your bench boosted. I think a Brighton midfield is really the only priority. But as I said, in terms of short term, especially if you want to go to Salah and not play any chips between, let's say, 22 to 26, it makes a lot of sense to actually have a Leicester player because there's a very high chance that they do have another double game week very, very quickly. I'm just going to quickly check the YouTube chat. Bench Gallagher, Foden, or Diaz. I'd probably bench... Tough one there. I'd probably bench Gallagher, to be quite honest, and I'd probably just take the chance on Foden or Diaz. You're on Wildcard, Reguilon or Cucurella. Probably Cucurella if you're on a Wildcard, just because there's a risk for the North London derby, and by going for Cucurella, you take that risk away. Lucas Moura in for Son. You already have Son. Yep, makes sense. Is Ronaldo playing? I think there's a high chance Ronaldo plays. I've heard about the training injury, but I don't really think that's been confirmed. Best replacement for Son, probably a Brighton midfielder such as Trossard or McAllister. And unless you let's say don't have Kane. If you don't have Kane, then I think it just makes sense to go for Lucas Moura. Ronaldo, Kane, or Bruno. I'd probably prioritize it Ronaldo, Kane, then Bruno in that kind of order. Yeah, if you guys would like the stream, that would be really appreciated. Arsenal are seeking to delay, even though they have players out through AFCON and red cards. Yeah, I mean that's entirely true. They apparently had Saka injured or not yesterday, but or actually yes, it was yesterday. And then with the Xhaka red card, you've got I think 12 men for this Arsenal team, so they're very, very thin on numbers. Ronaldo injury. That's the rumor, but I think he's actually fit to play. Is it a good idea to free hit this game week? I don't think so, because we've got much better double game weeks in the future. I mean, as I said, when we're kind of looking at the Premier League table, there's so many teams that haven't played games. For example, Burnley are 4 games behind. Watford are 3 games behind. Everton, 3 games behind. Leicester, 3 games behind. Some of these teams will play 21. Even Tottenham's 3 games behind. So, in this specific game week, we're getting so many singles because of the postponements that it probably makes sense to hold off on our chips. We could make better plays in the future. Trossard or McAllister? I'd probably go for Trossard. I just think it feels like a more safe play. I think the McAllister play is a bit of a bet on form. He's been in better form lately, so if you want to kind of bet on form, I think you go for McAllister, but it's up to you. So for a free hit, for example, I would probably go for McAllister. But in terms of the long-term kind of permanence of my team, I'd probably go for Trossard. How's Leeds' defense lately? Thinking Bowen captain. I mean, Bowen captain could be logical. Leeds haven't played very well lately themselves. In fact, Leeds have actually really struggled to score goals consistently. So if we actually look at Leeds in their kind of recent matches. So Burnley, I think it's a bit of a walkover, to be honest, because unfortunately Burnley are just one of the worst teams in the league, man for man. They've just lost Wood. They're missing Cornet at this point in time. So Burnley's quite a nice team to prey on. But of course, we know they're not playing football at this point in time because of the lack of men they have. And then in terms of Leeds, some of their other results, I mean, we all saw, I guess, to be fair, they played quite well versus Chelsea. But I think overall they've been struggling to score. Even in this Arsenal game, it was a very, very poor tackle by I believe it was Ben White. Made a very, very poor tackle. So Rafinha got a penalty there. The game versus West Ham was a bit of a walkover, to be quite honest. Rafinha didn't play there, which is a notable absence, which is kind of like a plus if you're a Rafinha owner, I suppose. But I don't think Leeds have been particularly good. Nothing exceptionally poor, but they've kind of just they've looked good for maybe 20-30 minutes in a game and then kind of been walked over. Tottenham game was a kind of good example of that, in my opinion. Dyer and Son both injured. Who should you take out this week? You've got Cancelo, Trent, Diaz at the back. I think that's a perfectly fine backline. I generally would be quite interested in going for double City versus Chelsea if, let's say, the Reguilon game versus Arsenal is cancelled. When I got Madison in, did I know one of the games were cancelled? No. I got Madison in early in the morning because I had to go to work, and I didn't imagine that the game would be cancelled. Because I think up until 10 a.m. the game had not been cancelled, so I just kind of booked the transfer in early. Look at Twitter. Happy to do that, yeah. Let's look at Harold's tweet. Who's the best on replacement? You got Bowen, Jota, Gray, and Rafinha. Probably Trossard or Moura. Mio, what do I do with this team? So it seems like Foden can play. It seems like Ronaldo will play. So I'd say Ronaldo, King, Watkins, and you've got Rafinha, Jota, Bowen, Gundogan, Foden. I mean, that's already 5, potentially. I would probably play Trent, Reguilon, Cancelo. And then I'd go Foden, Bowen, Jota, Rafinha, and then front 3. I'd just play it like that. Felipe, thoughts on this team? Only thinking of removing Son. Is it Trossard time? Madison was a good pick, but now with double game week. I have no clue what to do. Any ideas? 1 free transfer, 1.9 in the bank. I mean, I guess with the concern over Dallo, then it might make sense to move away from Dallo potentially. There's unfortunately not too many interesting defenders this week, with the exception to Cucurella or Cucurella. So that could be an option. I think otherwise the team, the way it stands, Gundogan's a very nice first bench option. So I'd only maybe consider moving away from Dallo. And I'm not so sure about the Foden punt because we haven't seen him play foot. Did we actually see him play recently? Because I thought he was out with COVID, so I didn't see him in the cup game, if I remember, or was he playing? That's the thing. You see, like Foden wasn't in this cup game, but I'm not even sure exactly what his situation is with COVID, so I would probably move away from that. Any thoughts on my team? I made an early move for Madison yesterday, so I was gutted to find out yesterday's. Yep, same here. Considering a -4 to take Antonio out for Dennis, probably not. Chances are second. I'd probably not cancel. I'd probably not go for Antonio to Dennis. It just doesn't seem like it makes sense if, let's say, the Burnley game can be cancelled once again, which is a fair point that people make. I still think that Dennis has a very nice single game versus Newcastle, but the same can be said with Antonio in this situation. So I'd probably stay away. You already have a good captain. I don't think there's necessarily any transfers additionally that you should make. I like this team, to be honest. I mean, it seems like Chelsea's quite secure from the point of view that they actually get to play out their 2 games. As far as Martinelli and Soufal, I guess the bench order makes sense. Even if, let's say, Chelsea lose a clean sheet versus City, there's still a decent chance for them to recoup some of that and recoup some of those points versus Brighton. So looks good to me. And Cancelo, unfortunately, just seems undroppable at this point in time. So yeah, quite happy with this team setup. Looking to get us some, but not sure who. Is it worth to take a hit for Ronaldo or Kane? The thing is, with this kind of front line that you have, I don't think so. As far as Son, I think it might be just worth making a move over Son. So who would we actually play this week? We'd probably play Trent. Maybe we play Marcel. Reguilon would probably start in this structure. We'd play the front 3. Sterling's a consideration, but it seems like I'm not exactly sure whether Sterling has COVID. We don't know. I'd probably just make a move. Maybe something like Lucas Moura is quite logical. My current team, after bringing in Madison, Ronaldo last night, unfortunately, do you think I stick to this or play Cancelo / Bernardo for Dallo? Or any other player, maybe? Cancelo for Dallo. Keep the team. I'd keep the team as it is. I like Cancelo for Dallo, though. I've used my free transfer on Son. Should I take a hit to bring in another mid? I mean, I think I would maybe consider Foden to actually play him, because I'm not a huge fan of Gabriel. I'd maybe have a think about that. Maybe change the bench order a little bit. Let's have a look at YouTube chat. Watkins or Antonio out for CR7? Probably Watkins. Much worse fixture. Even though Watkins has a potential double in the future, I just think that Antonio... it's a tough one, actually. That's actually quite a tough one. I think if you have Bowen in your team, you're actually quite happy, and you feel like you've got West Ham covered. So maybe if you have Bowen in your team, then I would go out of Antonio. It's just tough to go out of Antonio when he has okay fixtures himself. I know Watkins has nice fixtures, but we've also seen that basically Ings has come into the side. We don't know exactly how he's kind of dealing with the COVID situation. Watkins himself has beautiful fixtures, but it's a question, of course, of how Ings will kind of incorporate himself into the team. Clearly, Watkins is extremely favoured by Gerrard, so you can see that he's played the full 90 minutes for multiple games, whereas Ings has come off the bench several times. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. I'd probably maybe keep Watkins and take Antonio out if you already have Bowen in your team. Hit the free hit button a couple of days ago. Really unsure now, as it means I'm moving out of some decent players like Antonio / Jesus / De Bruyne. Could be a disaster. I mean, yeah, that's the toss-up, right? When you go for the double game weeks, I'd probably maybe try and prey on some players who have some very strong doubles, such as Ronaldo, and play off of that, Rob. Lucas Moura in for Son. I think that's very logical. DCL to King. I wouldn't necessarily do that. There's a high chance that the King's second game gets cancelled. Also, I think I wouldn't pass up the chance to actually have a striker versus Norwich. Ronaldo will play with Aston Villa. I think so. I just feel like Greenwood is more dynamic than Trossard, but Trossard is safer to play both games 90 minutes. I agree with that, Felipe, 100%. It's a case of basically, if you go for Greenwood, there's a chance he comes off the bench for one game and plays 10 minutes and doesn't do anything. So that kind of dynamicness argument is a question as well of whether he's actually going to effectuate a game. So that's a little bit of a worry there. I'm going to quickly go back to a bit of Twitter. Harry Kane fan account, what do you think? You don't want to sell Salah. I mean, that's up to you. That's fine. I think the team looks nice. I might actually play... Would I prefer Watkins over Dalot? Maybe not, I guess, if Dalot gets to play 2 games. If you really want to keep Salah on your team, I think that's fine. So you keep it as it is. Stefan, so Salah to Fernandes for 22 and 23, or just hold with this bench? Interesting. So who would play first? So we would have Gallagher playing this week. I'd maybe reconsider Cancelo. I think that's up. I think it's up to you whether you play Gallagher or Cancelo. I think this team looks fine if you want to keep Salah. I like Cancelo. Henry, you're thinking DCL to Ronaldo, and since that has me on -7, minus 0.7, I thought I'd move Son to a player that might double in game week 23, or has games postponed like Rafinha. It has to be 0. Yeah, I think that it might be Trossard time, or Lucas Moura. Who the captain starting 11 and first sub? How's my team looking, by the way? I kind of like Sanchez in if the North London derby goes through. And then I also like King in for Watkins, to be quite honest. I just think it's a better fixture. As far as the captaincy, it's a tough question, actually. I'd probably put it over... I like a Jota captaincy over this week. Or King. I mean, because you're kind of hoping that the Burnley game will continue. Jorginho, any changes? Really want Ronaldo. Who do you want to take out for Ronaldo? Sensor Beast, wildcard team. Should I go Reguilon to Cucurella, start Gray, or Foden? I like starting Gray. I just think Foden is a must for the future, in my opinion. I would love to get Foden next week, and I will 100% get him. So that's kind of what my plan is. As far as Reguilon / I mean, you already have Sanchez. I think we just need to think about the plan to Salah, right? So we've got a lot of money in the bank, 100%. So it seems like in 2 weeks' time, you'll definitely be able to finance a Salah move from someone like Gray. So it seems logical. Rajan's got a bench boost. Ooh, okay. Nice. 7.5 in the bank, no free transfer. 1, Son to Greenwood. 2, Broya to Kane or Ronaldo. I like move number 2. I like move number 2. Just because of the North London derby doubt, I kind of like the Ronaldo move a little bit more. I definitely prefer Ronaldo over Kane this week. That's just my opinion. Especially because... So the next week is not exactly the best matchup for either of United or Tottenham, but I really think that Kane will definitely blank versus Chelsea. That's my personal opinion. That's a very tough game for Tottenham. And the fixtures aren't perfect, whereas Ronaldo really has really good fixtures. Yeah, Rob, that's correct. It is best to leave the free hit late sometimes. Cucurella, Mora, and Watkins in for Dyer, Son, and Locadia. I think that makes sense, CM Punk, but what is the kind of play there? Are you going for some sort of bench boost? DCL to King, probably wouldn't do that move. I really like DCL. Leicester Double Gameweek has been removed. Absolutely, you're correct. It has been removed. Which team? I guess the question is going to be Kane versus Jota. It's a tough question. I kind of like Team 2. For me, because Team 2, the way I kind of see it is, okay, so Jota is going to be a big miss, but you at least cover the double. And it seems like, for me, Trossard has decent coverage over Mopé. And you've got kind of 2 chances to bang with Kane, which I kind of like over Jota. Share transfer plans. Yep, my transfer plans are kind of on my stream. I don't think Lamptey will get... Lamptey's actually come off as a super sub one game and played 60 minutes in some teams, so some games, so I'm not really a big fan of going -4 to Lamptey. You roll the transfer, but you're not sure. Do you make any changes? Your captain is King and vice Antonio. That's fair enough. I think in a week like this, I think it's totally fine to actually go and roll the transfer. Especially if, let's say, your plan is to go into Salah as soon as possible. Going into Kane and Ronaldo kind of stops that, right? You're going to have to deal with that kind of issue where you eventually -4 if you continually transfer. And rolling a transfer gives you that kind of security going to Salah, so I kind of like what you've done here. You wanted to... Okay, so... Hey, Hojak, how are you doing? You wanted to use your free transfer, but with the news updates, you've decided to take a -8 for Mount, Kepa, and Dennis. Kepa, interesting. I mean, Kepa's a pretty ballsy move, but good luck with that. Should you captain Kane or Dennis? I'd probably captain Kane, probably. Should you take one more hit for a double game week player? Honestly, I wouldn't. Because the only hit I'd ever probably take in this team is to go for Ronaldo from Watkins. And you don't have enough money to do that, so I'd probably leave your team as it is, given that you've already made those moves. What would you do with this team? 1 free transfer, 0 in the bank. I would roll if I was playing this team. Hey Fran, I have 2 free transfers. My heart is set on Gallagher to Elise. Which other would you do or hold? Thanks. Thinking St. Max or Wood for Antonio. Watford leads the next 2-3. I'd roll. I'd actually honestly roll. I don't really see a point in kind of making a transfer at this point in time, and especially not for those kind of those caliber of players. You're lost here. You either want to sell either Salah or Son. I'd sell Son and have to bench one of these players. Arnold, Cancelo, Alonso, Lamptey. I would bench Lamptey. Could also bring in a City defender. Hey Fran, already used 1 free transfer from Son to Moura. Have 1 free transfer left. Thoughts on doing James to Lamptey / Cucurella and doing a -4 to bring in Semedo for Livra. I would start both and bench Cash, Foden, and Martinelli. I'd not do the -4. I'd go with Cucurella. I'd roll in this structure, Mio. Kyle, considering rolling the free transfer to have 2 for the next game weeks. Thank you for loving the content. Definitely, yeah. I'd definitely roll. Your initial thoughts were to get Mount, Marcel, and Cavani in, but also keen on getting either or both Kane or Ronaldo. I like Ronaldo as an option. I'm not really a big fan of Cavani because I think it's a bit of a temporal move where at his kind of fitness, it doesn't seem like he's been injured quite a bit this season. There's a bit of fixture kind of congestion here with a specific double game week, and I wouldn't just pick Cavani just to target the double. You want to make sure your team has a little bit more of long-term permanence. Ronaldo is a bit of a tough move, but I can see that you can probably have some wiggle room by going out of Son and Broja, and hopefully that would kind of alleviate any kind of issues in your team. 1 free transfer, 3.2 mil in the bank. Any suggestions? Thinking Bruno in for Son. Yeah, I think that's quite a big gamble, but I would probably look towards your bench to see whether you have a strong enough bench. So my concern right now when just looking at your team is if you make that kind of Bruno move, The bench is nice. I would probably still play Cancelo this week over Kane, but that's up to you. Everyone has rather good games. It's a tough one here because Benrahma is going to be missing until 24. He'll definitely come back into the side. But Lanzini's also kind of stepped up in form. So I wonder whether Benrahma will have a permanent place in the team. He is kind of holding up a lot of money in your team, so that's kind of my concern here. But if you go for Bruno, you just expend a little bit of money. I guess the question once again is going to be how much money you have at the bank for Salah. So we play Bruno this week, and we keep the bench as it is. I guess maybe in the future you could maybe move away from Benrahma and go for Salah as well as part of a move. Anyone can go. Yeah, I mean, I like the team. I would rather probably play Cancelo. I'd probably replace Son with something like Lucas Moura this week. I'm not so sure about Bruno, even in the double. But I think if you really want to spend that money and you plan on taking Bruno out in 2 weeks' time for Salah anyways, then go for it. Livra to Lamptey, Son to Bruno or Trossard. I'm not a big fan of the Lamptey move whatsoever. Let's have a look at Lamptey very quickly together, guys, because Lamptey has played very, very... I mean, he's played since game week 8 quite consistently. And what's been consistent about him is that he gets rested a lot. So the last 2 games are a good example of that. He played 65 minutes versus Chelsea, didn't have an exceptionally good game, played 29 minutes versus Everton as a sub. Why would you necessarily want to go for a player like Lamptey if he is going to come off the bench one game and maybe play one game that could be a tough game, for example? There's chances that Lamptey will maybe, let's say, get rested versus Chelsea and have one good game versus Crystal Palace where they could still lose the clean sheet. And the thing about Lamptey too is that he's barely had any bonus points this season. And bonus points matter a lot for defenders. So if we look at, for example, Cucurella, he's amassed 13 bonus points this season. And if we actually look at stats, we go all players and we sort by bonus points, you'll actually see that Cucurella is one of the top players for bonus. I mean, James, Salah, Vardy are all out this week. We're basically saying that Trent's first, Cancelo's second, Dennis is third, Ronaldo is fourth, basically, and then Cucurella is basically fifth, which is pretty impressive for a player who's only had 1 assist this season. So that kind of tells you the importance of someone who actually plays 90 minutes as a defender. And the way he plays, I think he is a very, very good asset to have. He's basically what you wanted Lamptey to be last season, or what Lamptey was until he got injured, really. Except a little bit more pricey. So that's kind of my concern there when you're going for Lamptey. I think since you actually have a really, really kind of well spaced out midfield, McAllister is kind of interesting because you can then move away from either one of McAllister and Gray in the future because they're very, very cheap. Whereas I feel like with Trossard, you're almost spending a little bit too much money on a player who's not that efficient. I'd probably bench Laporte here. I kind of like playing Rafinha. You're not using a chip. If you did target a double gaming 22 mid, would it be Madison or might Leicester have to postpone? Oh, sorry, you've asked another question. Play one of Gundogan, Diaz, or Watkins. Honestly, I'd probably play Diaz. Would you bench boost this? I'm not actually sure what the issue is with Shaw. Otherwise, I would maybe consider a bench boost. I'd definitely captain Ronaldo over Dennis if I had Ronaldo in the team. What to do here? Fairly confused. And who to bench? It's a tough question with Lamptey. I do like Saka in the North London derby because he is quite an explosive player, and I think that game could be like a both teams to score type game. I'd roll though. Maybe this one is better. Hi Fran, I need your advice. Is it worth to get -4 to bring in Ronaldo captain? Let me see. Who is your striker? Did you have Jimenez? I'm a bit confused. That's a long time ago, sorry. I wouldn't go for the Man City midfielders or the Man United midfielders. I'm not a big fan of Sancho. Not the thing is, I need to know who you're transferring out from. It doesn't really help that I can see your final team because that tells me whether it's actually worth it to take a -4, -8. I definitely don't think Sancho's a huge, like, for example, for me, Ronaldo covers United. Definitely on attack. I think if you already have Ronaldo captaincy, you don't need to make another move there. When we're actually looking at the team this week, right, I would say obviously Emerson has a game, Trent has a game, Cancelo has a game. Tomiyasu arguably has a game. So we could, worst case, play something like a 4-4-2, but clearly you want to go for a 3-4-3. So I would probably go for the second team. Second option makes sense. How's your wildcard team looking? Any changes you'd make? Honestly, I wouldn't make any changes. Yeah, it looks strong because then you got Foden next week. Iñaki. -4 Madison. Okay, hey Fran. Very similar team to yours, but one Madison a few weeks already, so I got Bruno. Okay, makes sense. Really like the team actually. You got one free transfer and 4.4 in the bank. Let's see who's your striker. Tony, fair enough. You're thinking Son, Bruno, and gamble on that. But Ronaldo would be good too. I think Ronaldo's a much safer bet than Bruno, to be quite honest, guys. That's just my personal opinion. Free hit team, we could actually have a look at a free hit team as well. Transfers. Let's go. So I'd probably skip on Antonio, actually. I might go Ronaldo. I know a lot of people want to go for Kane, but I too really love the Calvert-Lewin fixture. So let's just keep Calvert-Lewin for now. I'm not a big fan of Fernandes, and I don't really care about money in the bank. So I definitely pick Cancelo. Defender-wise, I'd probably go Cucurella. Keeper-wise, I'd probably go De Gea. So things will change, stay the same. Let's just go for Runnerson. Sorry. Let's just go for one of the cheapest keepers in the game so we can actually just be done with this. Okay. Is there any other cheaper keeper? Sort by price. Never mind. Great, so we have a structure here where we play maybe Trent, Cancelo, Cucurella, Reguilon. Reguilon could be benched. I mean, let's wait on the North London Derby news. Is there any kind of updates in that kind of situation, actually? North London Derby. It's crazy that we don't actually have updated news. I really hate this aspect of FPL this season, but we'll deal with it as it is. Okay, fine. So probably take Rafinha out. Maybe take Bowen out this week. I like the Jota single. Maybe we take Bowen back in. Maybe we take Madison out. Maybe we take Truss. I'd probably play Mount, to be quite honest, on a free hit. And I'd probably just go for more at this point in time. My question here is whether I actually go for Kane. I'm a little bit worried about it, but yeah, I guess we'll just go for Kane. Fair enough. Triple up on Spurs here. Seems a little... I'd probably actually put Reguilon first bench. Do we even need Reguilon in the team? Probably not. You can just go for a cheap defender at this point in time. Maybe we just put Webster on the bench. Okay, and we'll think about Reguilon. Gray is an interesting single game too. I guess you go Kane, Ronaldo, Dennis. you'd probably captain Ronaldo. Lucas Moore is the tricky one here. I might just go for Trossard, potentially. But I am a little bit worried about that Chelsea game for Trossard. So that's a tough question. Maybe we just skip all those defenders altogether. We play Gray instead. But that's a tough decision too. So maybe we play De Gea, Trent, Cancelo, Cucurella. We play Mount, McAllister, Jota, Bowen, potentially. And then we put Gray first bench. And then we just play this front three with a captain Ronaldo. So I'd probably play that. And maybe have Reguilon first bench. I kind of like Cucurella's games over Reguilon. Especially with the high chance that there's going to be a doubt with this game. And the reason why I've taken Lucas Moura out is because if, let's say, this game gets postponed, then I'd be quite happy to own Kane versus Leicester. So that's not too bad. I think worst case scenario. And then we at least have Gray first bench, who's very, very interesting for me, just in case any kind of the big players miss out. So yeah, I'd probably do that kind of sort of team setup. Antonio knock. Yeah, I think apparently a West Ham Patreon did say that Antonio might have a knock. I'm not playing any chips right now. CR7, he might play. Cristiano might play. You're worried about I am worried about the North London derby being suspended because Arsenal seem to be very, very low in terms of players. If Antonio has a knock, then under my team setup, Rafinha plays. So I think I'd be quite happy to just do that. I'm not going to bench boost. That was my original plan, but honestly, too many games have gone the other direction, so I'm going to skip out on that. Lamptey to Cucurella. I'd focus on a move out to Son, in your personal circumstance. And if you replace Son, then you can actually replace Lamptey as well. So maybe let's say if you go out of Lamptey, you could maybe go for someone like a Moura or a Trossard. Ramsdale to De Gea. Laka to Antonio. -4, who to bench? I wouldn't go Laka to Antonio this week. I don't think there's a particular need to go out of Lacazette, potentially. I'd rather focus on going for players who have slightly better games. So, for example, any kind of like someone like a Trossard might be interesting this week. I think is a bit more of a priority transfer than getting out of Lacazette, unfortunately. The reason why I say this is because Antonio might have a knock. So that transfer could really hurt you, right? Leicester versus Burnley postponed. How far are these likely? I mean, it seems quite likely. So, I mean, the situation with Foden, if he's been in training all week, is that, I mean, he can't have COVID in, like, again and again, right? So I think he should be okay. Arsenal obviously are very, very low in personnel, so that game could be postponed. Feels very scary going in for Ronaldo. It's true, but I'm -4. Shared a tweet. Arsenal have requested to have Sunday's game at Tottenham postponed. Believe a statement from the Premier League is imminent. I hate FPL. I actually hate it. I hate it. Okay. Should I just do this for now, preemptively? Put Reguilon second bench. Feels a little bit idiotic, but I'm tempted to do that. Because the game could be postponed. We don't know exactly what's going on. Tough. Leeds down to 9 senior players for Arsenal. Premier League fixture goes ahead. This is rough. Yeah, I like rolling here. 1.2 mil in the bank. Hey, Fran, should I get Fernandes or Mount or Foden for my Sun replacement for my free transfer? I'd roll if you are thinking Foden. Okay, great. I agree. Don't go. Don't overthink. Go Ronaldo captain. You think you're doing this? Does it look okay? Son to a short-term mid. Great. Broya to Watkins. Son to Ronaldo. Um, Broya to Watkins makes sense. Ronaldo to Antonio or DCL. Fair enough. Short-term mid to Salah. I think that makes sense as well. Rudiger to someone in some time. Should I do Broya Antonio this week? Not for a -4. I wouldn't go for the Broya move. I wouldn't go out of Antonio for a hit. But if you have a free transfer and you want to go into Ronaldo, I think that does make sense. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is it worth having Fernandes on? Honestly, probably not. I think Ronaldo is perfect coverage for United. You've made an adjustment. Guess that's best that it could be. Honestly, I mean, you've got a very strong team. So best of luck. I hope the North London derby goes through in your kind of circumstance, but we'll see what happens. Tony out for DCL for -4. I mean, Tony's got a double game week though. Are you not kind of interested in having Tony for at least 2 games? I know Tony's probably not going to score in those 2 games, but at least, I mean, him even playing those 2 games is 4 points in of itself. So DCL has to at least get kind of 8 points, right, to be worthwhile. Is it worthwhile for you? Like I would rather you go for someone like a Kane if you could, or Ronaldo. I know it's tough because you only have 4.4 in the bank, so we're really only talking about. I'm not even sure if you can afford Kane in that setup. I think you can, right? Because Kane should be 12. Is he 12.3? Or 12.2 actually. You could maybe go for Kane. I'd rather roll in this kind of circumstance, just because, or not roll, but rather not take a -4, because I think Tony's gonna get those kind of points, and yeah, I wouldn't take the chance with DCL. Will Antonio play? Who to bench if I get in Ronaldo? Who to bench? Have all chips remaining. Maybe a Spurs attacker. Probably go for Mora, maybe. Hi, Sean. On free hit, 0.8 in the bank, or a better captaincy pick. I'd prefer Ronaldo. I prefer Ronaldo based on the latest rumors. As far as the rest of your team, happy with it. Any changes we'd make to a wild card? Honestly, I wouldn't go double Everton on a wild card. I think that's the only thing I'd say. I wouldn't go double Everton on a wild card. Not right now. Yep, I think Cancelo's a season keeper, so please add him whenever you can. Doing Lacazette to Ronaldo, start Gallagher to Watkins over Foden, right? Yeah, I kind of like Gallagher. Could also take a hit and get Reese out for Cucurella, but I don't know if this is worth the risk. Probably not worth the risk. It's now official. Okay. Let's have a look at the request. We can confirm we made an application to the Premier League to postpone. Wow, so they actually put it on Twitter. Are you serious? I don't think any other club has actually done that recently. Okay, let me just look at my team. So, I'd probably play Laporte. Maybe. I mean, Rafinha's a tricky one. Madison still plays second game. Reguilon goes into my bench. Whatever. Bowen I like. Gray I like. Rafinha's going to be that big question mark for me. But honestly, Leeds have looked quite dire lately. And I still have him versus Newcastle. So, I'll keep it as it is. Be right back, guys. I have to just go quickly to the bathroom and I'll join you guys in a second. Okay, guys, I'm back. I mean, it's crazy with the postponement news. I think, as we've been kind of saying, I think the safest captain, if you actually own him, is going to be Ronaldo. For me, it's just very hard in my team structure to kind of justify why I would go for Ronaldo because several kind of issues. Now, first of all, I don't doubt Ronaldo's physical fitness at his age. But we find Kane to be quite uninteresting this week because if the North London derby gets postponed, there's no real interest there. He then has to play with Chelsea, which is a super tough match. I already have Reguilon, who I'm happy to own, I suppose, when he gets future doubles. As far as Ronaldo, there's a chance that he might get rested one game. I really doubt that because for me, when I'm looking at the games that United have played so far, no player has interested whatsoever from the attacking point of view other than Cavani. And I don't really see how Cavani covers Ronaldo. I mean, they're both arguably players who play better together. And I really think that Ronaldo is still the focal point of the offense. And yeah, for those kind of reasons, I think Ronaldo makes the most sense as a safe captaincy. But I can't see myself going out of Antonio or out of Calvert-Lewin for a hit at this point in time. Maybe going out of Antonio could make sense. I could do that. I could do that. But then, okay, let's say I go for Ronaldo now. My question is going to be, what do I do next week in terms of a move, and how do I go back to Salah? So it's going to be a tough situation where if I go for Ronaldo now, and let's say Gray becomes Foden the next week, that's a possibility. But there's basically no money to go really into Salah until I go out of Ronaldo again. And to be fair, when we're talking about Salah, maybe we could go a little bit later on Salah. So if let's say Salah comes back on 24, I could pick him up for 25 versus Burnley and then Norwich. But, you know, we did see the game versus Leicester. That was a tough game for Liverpool. I imagine that at Anfield they'll be playing a very good game. And over the course of the season, if things actually if things stay as normal, Leicester have a very, very abysmal defense, even though they get some of the AFCON players back. So that's kind of my concern. Whereas with Ronaldo, obviously, 23 is not the best game. And he similarly has very, very good games from 24 to 26, right? And Salah has a blank 27, I believe. So that's kind of the tough consideration. But there's also a chance that Salah has a 26 double game week, I believe, with Leeds and other teams. So, and Norwich, I think. So that's kind of my concern. If I go for Ronaldo now, I'm almost crippling myself in my team structure. I can't even... That means I have to be riding with Ronaldo for quite a while. And it might be beneficial if, let's say, Ronaldo had a very good game in 27, but do I really want to miss out on Salah in these games without taking a hit? Potentially not, and it just feels like it's not that worthwhile, especially if, let's say, because I already have a very strong bench at this point in time when I look at it. Yes, I'll probably lose a lot of points to Ronaldo. I imagine his selection ownership is probably going to be something like 80% this week. And Dennis captaincy, that's a little bit of a big gamble for myself, but I like it. If, let's say, one of my players don't play this week, then Rafinha comes in from the bench, that's fine. And yeah, I'm not too worried about it because I have a very strong bench. I'm kind of covered in that sense. Whereas if I go for Ronaldo, it's almost like he has to perform well, and I have to kind of live with him a little while longer. I almost have to bank in 2 -4s because of my wanting to go for Salah and wanting to go for Salah captaincies as soon as he comes back. So I really don't see myself making that move. In terms of the money I have in the bank, I've got a plentiful amount, and really it should be towards going to Foden and going to Salah as well. So maybe, let's say Maddison has bad games post 23. Maybe he has a double game week here, and I enjoy the double game week, and then we go into 24 where I go out of Maddison. Maybe I go for Salah here. And unfortunately, I don't have Foden in this kind of setup. Maybe I have to drop someone like a Rafinha to go for Foden potentially. We'll see what happens. I'll kind of have a little bit of a close watch over the teams so far and maybe have a look at Rafinha to see if I want to make an assessment, because holding on to 2 Everton players is another question mark. There could be a -4 in the future where I go out of Calvert-Lewin, but he's got good games himself, so I really see myself keeping him. It would really be Antonio, who I have some question marks over. Maybe in 23, potentially, where I take a -4. If, let's say, some double game weeks do come out in 23, the reason why I say this is because if you look at Ben Crellin's kind of... I mean, Ben Crellin isn't the Bible, but he's pretty much as close to it as you can be. So he's saying that there's a chance that some double game week fixtures in game week 23 and beyond will be announced a minute after the game week 22 deadline. And these were and these are his thoughts on a potential double game week 23. So that really interests me in terms of plays that we have possible. So I would like to keep my options open as opposed to kind of fixing my team towards Ronaldo indefinitely. So those are kind of my thoughts. We can quickly breeze through Twitter. I'd probably start Tony for 2 games. I mean, he could maybe get a penalty. Should you free hit for Mount, Marcel, Ronaldo, Dennis, and base more transfers around the double game week? I think your team looks good without a free hit. Thomas, Captain Fernandez or Bowen, Lee Fernandez, Mays. Who would you replace then, and who for who? Should Sanchez be dropped as well? If you're wildcarding, I actually think Madison makes a lot of sense for 2 reasons. So, as we said, you want to look at how many games teams have played. They have to actually play double game weeks very, very soon. So, we're really talking about players like Burnley. So, for example, Cornet will 100% go back into my radar. Newcastle is not a team I'm interested in whatsoever. Tottenham is an interesting team, as we said. Leicester is an interesting team, and Everton are quite an interesting team. But you already have coverage of that with DCL if you already have DCL. So, for me, it's about covering at least one of the more talismanic players in these teams. And to be fair, Lucas Moura could be argued to be talismanic during this run, especially if Son is out. So if, let's say, they have to play 2 games in game week 23, then I'd be quite happy to actually have Lucas Moura in my team, potentially. Or Kane if you're a Kane owner. So those are the kind of decisions you have to make. Because if you're playing game week by game week, yes, maybe you're kind of going for Brighton players now, but then Brighton are already a little bit more ahead of most teams, right, in terms of games played. So if they play the double this week, then they'll be back on 21. So there are going to be teams that are lagging behind. Let's say if the North London derby gets cancelled, then Tottenham only play 1 game, they'll be on 19. So they'll be 2 behind Brighton in the subsequent week, and then you might have some value by already pocketing some players. And the thing with chips is that usually we have enough chips to kind of spare with the double game weeks, but this season, due to the postponements, we've had so many blanks that there inevitably will be some smaller double game weeks, just like in 21. So that's all about capitalizing on the right player in that right week. Where, for example, Bowen captaincy was an absolute must basically last week. If you didn't captain him, you didn't actually get hurt quite a bit, in my opinion. So that's going to be the main concern, as I say. So it really does make sense to think a little bit more long term if you're wildcarding, looking at teams who are missing a lot of games and kind of banking on some of their players being effective. So for me, let's say someone like Rafinha, who might actually lose his spot in my team, or someone like Gray who could lose his spot in his team, in my team. And Cornet could be quite interesting, right? If Burnley have to suddenly catch up a bunch of fixtures, so Tottenham, Aston Villa, Everton, Leicester, right? Tottenham, maybe we could say is going to be a tough game, but I would say Aston Villa, Everton, and Leicester are all games where they could hopefully score, and Cornet has been an absolutely talismanic player, so he's definitely going to be someone on my radar if, let's say, some of the games get postponed. I mean, eventually Burnley will have to play these games. They're so far down in matches played that they'll have to catch up there. So that's going to be the main thing. By the way, am I still bench boosting? No, I'm not. I'm not free hitting as well. Just kind of responding to some Twitter replies. We can confirm we've made an application to the... Yep, okay, that's been confirmed. What do you think, Mount for captain? It's not a bad... I would not. I would go for Ronaldo. Should I start Manuel Real doing Arsenal? Maybe Madison. Ronick. Hey, Fran, suggesting 3.5 mil in the bank. I think you can actually roll in this team, right? Because you can actually just play a 3-4-3 and you'd be happy with that. At least for Moura. Any other changes to it? Moura. Tough situation. I'd probably go Moura just for the double game week. 1.7 mil in the bank. Salah to Madison. Manquillo to Cucurella. Worth a bench. Okay, sorry. Salah to Bruno, who you suggest. And Manquillo to Cucurella or Lamptey. Would you get Ronaldo instead of Watkins? Yes, I would. To captain him. Mope has good stats, similar Bruno. I'd go Mope because you have Broya. James, not sure to replace Son with. Any suggestions? Trossard. Probably Trossard. Actually, since Tottenham double game. Actually, wait, sorry. That's a bad decision. I'd go Trossard. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong person. My bad to this person. Trossard. Yeah, I think we have to kind of play off the. What do you guys think? I'm benching Reguilon because I think there's a high chance that the North London derby gets cancelled. So that's kind of my decision making there. Would you guys change my bench order at all? Would you play Maddison potentially over Rafinha? Would you play Rafinha over Maddison? What kind of bench order do you guys think I should go for? Bowen, Jota, or Bruno, captain and vice? I quite like Bruno vice. Sorry, Bruno captain and then Bowen vice or Jota vice. I really don't think it matters too much. Best midfielder pick for the next few game weeks, apart from Bowen, Jota, and Foden. It's a good question. So Rafinha doesn't have the best of games. Do we really want to be banking on something like a Trossard? That is going to be a big question. I'd probably say no, to be quite honest. It's a tough decision. I'd actually I really think Maddison could still be a good choice for the next few weeks. I know it sounds crazy because they're playing Liverpool. But we know this team can score versus most teams. We've already seen them beat Liverpool. Now, obviously, this is at Anfield, so let's just say this is a dead fixture, right? We have a blank in 27, which isn't appetizing, but we're saying the next few weeks. You cover these games. If there's a potential double that gets postponed here, so these are the games that could be rescheduled, right? Everton, Norwich, Burnley. So these kind of games, if they get rescheduled here, I think there's a high chance that Maddison's exceptionally interesting as an option. And you see, even Gallagher has a tough game in between. Rafinha has arguably middling games, especially with Leeds being in poor form. And Trossard's kind of like been a bottom performer. Also has a very, very kind of close blank. I would rather go for Trossard post 24 more than anything. So yeah, Gray is an interesting one too in terms of midfielders. I mean, this is a beautiful run of games. As far as Aston Villa, I mean, Coutinho really might be interesting after 22. So I might consider Coutinho as well. Especially if let's say we get to see Coutinho play on Saturday. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but maybe if we actually get to see Coutinho play versus Everton potentially, and he looks interesting, he's playing in that 10 role, Coutinho could be a really good option because I don't think he's overpriced at all. I think Gray is a nice pick. Am I going Maddison instead of Moura? Yes, probably, just because of the medium term. For me, the games have to be rescheduled sometime soon. Fernandes for a -4. I mean, it really depends who you're taking out of your team. If you're taking out someone like Son who's not going to play, then that's fair enough. Since Tottenham double game week may not happen, shall you leave your team or do you still recommend? Good luck to you too. What to do? Oh, tough situation here. I'd probably go out of Son this week, or out of Watkins. Alright guys, no more Twitter for a bit. I'm just gonna have a look at my team, have a little bit of a think. So our assumption is that the North London derby is cancelled, so that's why Reguilon's gonna be on our bench. Do I want a bench boost? No, I don't really. It's gonna be 5 games. One of them is gonna be a keeper. As I said, I just think there's gonna be so many more doubles in the season. I probably want to save my bench boost. And there's nothing really wrong with that. Like for example, all of these players are either talismans or players who will be playing for the rest of the season. Like no doubt. Dennis is a talisman. Calvert-Lewin, Antonio are talismans. Madison's a talisman. Jota's a talisman. Gray is arguably not a talisman, but he is someone who I have enough money to move out of. I mean, I can go straight to Salah from Gray at this point in time, right? If you have a look. So this is kind of my decision making here. I think Reguilon is clearly the fullback that Conte likes. He doesn't have the fitness that maybe Conte wants. As you can see, he's had very kind of mixed minutes lately. So that's going to be a little bit of a problem going forwards. But for the most part, Reguilon actually still produces a lot from a kind of underlying stat point of view, where I hope that if his fitness improves, he should be a talismanic player for the Spurs team on a game-to-game basis, as opposed to, you know, having a very, very kind of hot patch here where he had 1 goal, 1 assist, plenty of points to go, and then suddenly he goes into a bunch of dry fixtures. So that's going to be the kind of thinking there. Rafinha or Gray or for Son. I'd probably go for Gray, to be honest. It's you're punting Dennis as captain. If we die, we die. I agree. If we die, we die. Great words. Would you recommend captaining Kane or Dennis? I mean, I think I'd maybe still captain Kane because there's both the chance that both games get cancelled. Tough week. Leanne, you're letting your transfer roll this week. You got Fabianski, Cancelo, Reguilon, Trent, KDB, Jota, Gray, Bowen. I think rolling is a very good pick this week, or a good decision. Bernardo out for Foden, probably not this week. I'd probably make that transfer next week. So if that's your move, I would probably roll. Thoughts on Cody over Laporte? City fan, but double City versus Chelsea might be risky. I mean, that's a good point, to be fair. I do kind of like Cody. I just like the fact that City are playing at home. You know what I mean? Davison, Sanchez, or Cancelo? I'd probably play Cancelo. Ronaldo or Bruno? I'd definitely go for Ronaldo. Soufal or Shane Duffy? Probably Soufal. Is Duffy even playing consistent minutes anymore? Start Lamptey or Gallagher? I'd probably go Gallagher. De Gea captain. Are we being serious? I'm gonna go for Dennis, guys. That's just my opinion. Arsenal has injuries, not COVID. Yeah, but injuries still prevent you from actually being able to play the game. That's why they've actually made a postponement request. So that's the main thing. Reguilon or Dawson for sub? Probably Dawson for sub. 2 men's lock and load. Potentially much higher ceiling with saving transfers, or at least not taking hits since Aston Villa is likely to double and then have a great. Exactly, I agree. There's a lot of teams that could potentially have doubles that we don't know about at this point in time. Yeah, Juco, and that's why I put Reguilon on my bench, actually. Maybe I actually prefer Cody over Reguilon. Okay, let's just change my bench order again. Should I go double City or do you guys prefer Cody? Soufal or Duffy. I mean they're not the best options, but yeah, I think you go for Soufal there. Okay, I agree with the argument that De Gea doesn't have very necessarily hard games. But at the same time, if you want to talk about not very hard games, I mean, doesn't that same kind of condition apply towards Dennis, who's been one of the best players in the league this season? Or do you disagree with that? Stop overthinking. Okay, I'll go double City. I mean, that's why. I mean, Laporte was brought in for a reason. If a 5.6 player isn't a premium on defense, then there's a problem. So I'll go with Laporte. If Rafinha holds, then I'm going to apologize to my shrine of Rafinha, but it is what it is. I agree, Thomas. But there's also chances that, for example, let's say the Brentford game could be postponed, right? They've got a lot of injuries themselves. Locked in. Good luck, guys. Yep, guess I'm locked in. Oof. Rough. It's a tough week when these are your differential picks, isn't it, guys? So we went from Leicester players to going to Wan-Bissaka as a differential. I mean, it's not the best game week at all. I think this is going to be quite a low ceiling game week, to be honest, guys. Maybe if you guys went for Trossard and stuff like that, there could be a very high ceiling there. But I think a lot of people have decided to maybe postpone using their chips, and this game week is going to be very, very tough for all of us, basically. So we'll see what happens. As I said, I think it does pan out as good logic if you go for, or at least if you build around some players or some teams who haven't played many, many games of football. So definitely Matthew Cornet, maybe 24 onwards, will be on my radar once again, even though he has disappointed me this season. Mostly because he's not been allowed to play football when he's been in my team, but we'll see what happens. So apparently Antonio has been playing with a knock. So that basically means he's going to keep playing, or what's going on here? So this is apparently the knock that Antonio has, which is nice because let's say if he has a knock and he doesn't play the game, then I would be quite happy to I'd be quite happy to have Gray off the bench or Rafinha off the bench in my situation. Good luck to you guys this game week. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Hope you guys have all had a good start to the year. I'm actually quite tired because unfortunately I had a nice little holiday, and then going back to work this week has been a little bit of a trip. So yeah, and I will be working quite late starting from now. So the next 2 months I'll actually be working late nights. So we'll have to see if we can actually keep the content going. But I hope you guys have a wonderful time. Wan-Bissaka, exactly. It's. I mean, it's quite desperate when Wan-Bissaka becomes a differential pick. You forgot what it was like to think about a captaincy pick. Thing is, I've actually tried to think about captaincy picks quite a lot, and every time I do try to think about it, I just end up losing. So it is what it is. I think so. As we're kind of discussing, when I put my captaincy over Trent in the Everton game, and Salah had a 2-goal, 1-assist game. I think the last 3 games before that, and then the next 3 games after that, I think Trent outscored Salah. So yeah, apparently if you don't think about your captain, all the better. Yeah, if you guys can leave a like, that'd be really appreciated, and a subscription. Thank you guys so much. You're a total tactician. That could actually be a nice little name for the community. What do you guys think? No United attacker could harm me. Yeah, but at the same time, owning a United attacker could harm you. I didn't actually end up bench boosting Parth, unfortunately. A lot of the single game weeks just really, really depressed me. So oh, thank you so much, Jake, as well. Just saw the comment. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Good luck to you, Harold. Thomas, you're saving your chips for later. I think that's fair. That's completely fair enough. Twitter DMs. I'll have a look at that in a second. Are you worried about Twitter DMs now, especially after the Cody or Diaz start? Mitch goes for Mope. You'd Russian roulette with Captaincy between Ronaldo and Dennis, and you're stuck with that. Oh. I would have gone for Ronaldo, but fair play. DDG captain. My god. Yep, I think rolling is a nice pick this week. Thank you, Luke. Oh, you want me to kind of open up my Twitter DMs? Yeah, I can do that. Messages. Is it privacy? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you, Sloan. Am I watching the game today? If I'm a tactician, all right. So I guess I'm not much of a tactician then. Is that what you're saying, girl? You captain Trent in the end. Honestly, Jerome. I mean, sometimes it's good to go with safe options, but I've had bad luck captaining Trent, so a little bit of PTSD from my end. So we'll see what happens there. I've captained Dennis, and I'm happy to captain Dennis. I feel like sometimes it's just fun to actually put a captaincy on someone you have quite a lot of confidence from watching. Am I watching the game today, Brighton vs Crystal Palace? Probably not, unfortunately. I'm going to be, I think, taking a bit of a break and maybe going to sleep a little bit early tonight. Maybe I'll be playing a little bit of Valorant or a bit of old school RuneScape. I don't know. What kind of games do you guys play outside of maybe football games? I might actually play a bit of FIFA, actually. I might do my weekend league, potentially. Oh, you got no doublers, Jerome? I mean, that's totally fine. Madison did ruin me as well. OSRS, yeah. I do play a bit JM. I just started actually playing. Can I show my team? Yeah, I can. I can't. Can I show my team right now? I don't think I can. I can tell you who my team is. So I played Cancelo, I played Trent, I played Laporte. That's my back three. I have De Gea as my keeper. My midfield is I put Rafinha on the bench actually. So I have Madison. I have oh my god, I've drawn a blank. I've got Bowen, I've got Jota, and I have someone else. Gray. I have Gray, and then I in my front line I've actually got Dennis Captaincy, Antonio, and DCL. League 3 on the way. I'm quite behind JM in terms of progress, so I need to get on that action. I do play a bit of Valorant, so if you guys actually want to game with me, feel free to join us on Discord. So if you check the link in the description below, you can actually find us on Discord, and we can actually just talk. I would love to actually play games with some of you guys in the community, so that'd be cool. Do I play any mobile games? No, I don't actually. I'm not a big fan of mobile games, unfortunately. I'm more of someone who likes to play. Sorry, I'm just gonna move my microphone positioning. I'm more of someone who likes to play just games that are competitive on the PC. So anything that's 5 versus 5, 1 versus 1. I used to play StarCraft back in the day. CS:GO. I mean, I could play CS:GO, but I'm not very into CS:GO. I like watching CS:GO esports, but I haven't actually played much of CS:GO because I don't have too many friends that actually play CS:GO. More sound, fantastic, isn't it, Thomas? Yeah. Spending your first salary on skins, I think, is a very logical decision, Tim. I just hope you picked the right skins. That's what I would say. I actually have a couple collections. Do you guys want me to show you guys my Valorant collections? Checked out Age of Empires 4. I used to play Age of Empires 3 back in the day, way back, but no, I haven't actually checked out Age of Empires 4. The only kind of RTS I really played very consistently was StarCraft, and I was a Grandmaster on StarCraft. God of War and MK. Is that Mortal Kombat? That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, StarCraft was my favorite game. I was like 12 to 13 years old when I was playing StarCraft 2 every day. So I would come back from school and just play StarCraft nonstop. Thank you, Henry. I really appreciate it. As our very, very loyal 2-month captain, you've been awesome to have around. Makes me turn volume off a little. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's either or, right? Euro Truck. I've watched Euro Truck on Facebook. Like, I've seen live streams of people who showed like Euro Truck, right? Who were kind of like perfect runs. I mean, I don't really know why people play those kind of games, but it's awesome to see that people do sometimes, you know, because it's like it's a game that I would never think about. Hot take from a Tottenham fan. Basically, everyone's just upset about postponements if it affects them, you know. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Let's have a look. I could open up my Valorant, show you guys my skin lines, my collections. Has anyone been playing a bit of FIFA this year? Need to actually see what the content today was on FIFA. Hopefully a little bit decent. Okay, so the Gundogan SBC came out. Ooh, and the SAR card looks quite good. Interesting. I'm not sure if this is actually worth 500, 600k. I think that's a little bit overpriced. He doesn't even have like that elite of a body type. His pace is a little bit slow. I just feel like we've had so many comparable cards that are just as good. For example, like if I make a comparison to Savanier, I mean, Savanier is pretty much the same card, has a chance of being upgraded, and doesn't cost 600k. Also doesn't force you to play Premier League or link yourself to City players. Yeah, I feel like this Gundogan card is a little overpriced. I mean, I guess he's a much better shooter, so much better kind of attacking box-to-box mid. But ultimately, does it matter too much if Saturday can get some upgrades? Probably not. You just did the Gundogan SGC. I'm not trying to roast you, but that's just my opinion. You play FIFA Pro Clubs? That's cool. Anyone at I only played Diablo 3, to be honest. Swapping StarCraft for fantasy football in my old age. Oh, I wouldn't like to think of myself as old, but I guess here we are. I only started playing FPL 2 years ago though, so that's interesting. Not sure about this Malang Sarr card as well. Also seems like a bit of a waste of money. Just because there are so many elite cards right now. Nice composure, nice reactions, but nothing too crazy. I'm still rocking the Militao card, who's been amazing for me so far with the 99 reactions. Like, it actually generally feels amazing to actually have a defender with those kind of elite stats. How old am I? I'm actually 24. The Sterling card actually looks good, but once again, he's got a winter wildcard card as well, so I imagine this dropped in price today a little bit. Yeah, yes it has. How old is everyone here? The thing is, I've been a football fan all my life, but I didn't. My family support Real Madrid, so for a long time, of course, I was just really watching La Liga and not too much of the Premier League. I did watch the Premier League quite a bit when Jose Mourinho was in his first stint in Chelsea, because when I was young, I lived in Hong Kong, so I didn't actually capture I didn't have much time, sorry, to actually watch Premier League games because all the European games happen when I'm sleeping. So that was always tough. Sorry, it's an objective card. Oh, that's my bad. Oh, is that one of those kind of like right, it's one of those cards where you have to do like 4 to 5 objectives, right? And it's like a Premier League special. I guess, yeah. I mean, my issue, I guess, is that it's still not worth it, right? His pace isn't that elite, and I don't know. I'd probably actually rather just have Varane because he's got unique animations. You're a Man United fan for so long, but 10 years is... Yeah, the last 10 years have been rough for United, haven't they? They've definitely fallen off a cliff in terms of their status and just the general... Like, just the level of dominance in the Premier League has been so drastically low for United so far. Your parents went for bridge instead of FPL. We all make our moves. Okay. You're 29, lifelong City fan, only started FPL in the last 2-3 years. Thank you, Jake. That's awesome. I mean, it's nice. It's nice actually to be able to also pick teams from your own club, isn't it? I feel like, for example, when I'm looking at some people's teams on our Discord, people end up picking players that they have a kind of close affinity to, and sometimes it's like the wrong decision. But sometimes, I mean, when some of the best players in the Premier League are in your own club, then that's enjoyable. Yeah, Leanne, it's been quite a switch up between Liverpool and United in terms of how well they perform the league. Phoenix T. Yeah, so I did captain Dennis, actually, a bit of a ballsy move, so we'll see what happens. Play Reguilon, they'll keep 2 clean sheets. I mean, I it's too late now, isn't it? And I'm kind of banking on the fact that Reguilon doesn't play. I'm still quite interested to actually own Dennis versus Newcastle. Even if that's a single game week. You're also 24, JM? That's cool. Yeah. It's a tough one this game week. I really think that the continued postponements are just... They're making the game very boring from a point, because everyone wants to make football decisions, but you want to make football decisions based on the fact that football is going to be played, as opposed to the fact that you're backing decisions that football is not going to be played. So it just makes it a little bit, I guess, like we want the variance from FPL. Well, I personally like the variance from FPL to be more about circumstances that happen, over 90 minutes, as opposed to, I don't know, Arsenal have, let's say, one injury, one red card, and two or three players going to AFCON, as well as additional injuries. So those are the kind of things that are really annoying for me at this point in time, and it makes planning and also making content around FPL a lot harder. Just because, for example, I did make 2 or 3 videos that I had in the back burner, which was to kind of address specific teams that we have in the community. But every week, the more postponements that we have, the decisions become so much more homogenized. So, for example, this week you had the option of going for Mora, for Madison, or even Trossard, right, as differential picks, or even Lookman, for example, who was a very, very good pick in my opinion. And there's now a high chance that, well, first of all, we know Madison and Lookman don't have a double, and there's a high chance that Mora doesn't have a double. So the safest decision really was to go for a Trossard or McAllister, which is never really too interesting in football if you're going to be using them for differentials. Yeah, it is an absolute nightmare, especially since I have regular work to kind of schedule around. So sometimes I'll kind of take my lunchtime out, record a video, try and edit it as much as possible, edit it at night, and then the FPL landscape just completely changes itself overnight. So with the postponements, yeah, I literally was going to drop a video this lunchtime, but it was tough. Mount's a good pick as well, Robbie. Actually, sorry. I don't think you should actually regret going for Mount. I still think Mount has one good fixture and hopefully a fixture where he can get 2 points. You think Sarr will be available to Watford, then the team will be a boost with King, Sarr, Dennis, and Sissoko. So that's going to be in a few weeks' time, right? It'll be interesting to actually see whether Dennis becomes or remains as the focal point, as he has been this season. But I think even if you look at the Everton-Watford game, that's a good example of what happened. I think Sarr was actually subbed off, right? So in this game here, they had subbed off Sarr, and they had scored 5 goals immediately after he was subbed off. Of course, I'm not saying that Sarr is basically the problem of Watford and he's stopping them from scoring goals. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's more the fact that it's very interesting that that this Watford team has done exceptionally well with Dennis and King leading the line from a goal scoring point of view. But they're really let down by their defense, and Sarr isn't going to change that, right? So when we look at Watford overall, they've been scoring very consistently. So they've scored practically every game except for the Tottenham game, even versus a team like City. But it's the question of whether they can actually keep their clean sheets. And they look like a team that's very, very far away from being able to do that. Their midfield is very static as well. It's basically Sissoko and Kuchka. It isn't the best looking one. So it's a tough situation for them. I think they'll be... You missed the deadline. Oh, sorry to hear that. You're off, Torpedo? Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll see you very shortly. Yeah, Watford's a very, very terrible defense. And if we look at, like, for example, the underlying stats for the Premier League, Watford are basically a bottom 2 defense. Or bottom 3, rather. So it's Watford, Newcastle, and Norwich are all very, very, very near the bottom. Or sorry, no. Yeah, so Watford are basically the worst defense in the league if you look at expected goals allowed. So this is basically a metric that kind of suggests, how many goals that Watford really should have conceded over the course of this year. And as we know, they've conceded plenty. So they've conceded just as much as they were expected to concede. Newcastle and Norwich have been particularly worse in the sense that they've actually conceded much, much more than they really should have. So if you look at a team, for example, like City, they've kind of overperformed this metric, whereas Leeds and Newcastle have underperformed this metric in a sense, because they've conceded much more goals than they were expected to. The same goes for Norwich as well, who, in my opinion, haven't really improved too much under Dean Smith. But part of that is due to the fact that they have a lot of injuries. They're playing a lot of academy players, and it kind of goes back to the whole arguments that some managers have over 3 to 5 substitutions. When Norwich have 2 to 3 players injured, especially let's say if a Timo Pukki is injured, their kind of hopes, for those specific weeks are dashed. Whereas I would say arguably Liverpool are still in a good position with Salah and Mane out of the team. due to the overall depth that they have. But it's, I mean, part of that too is really dependent on teams. So I think the Brentford manager, for example, he was talking about 5 substitutions, and he was basically saying that he is a big fan of 5 substitutions because it allows him, to kind of play around with a little bit more kind of tactical dexterity, and it's really dependent club to club. Burnley, for example, they're really struggling, even though they're actually performing quite well, despite not actually being able to play too much football. Burnley are in a good position, really, in my opinion, because I think I would say they probably could get a few draws, and already that would kind of let them surpass maybe a Watford. The question really is which one of these 3 teams is going to be relegated, I suppose, because I think Everton and Leeds will probably do just enough to keep going. I think Brentford's a pretty terrible team, so I imagine they will continue to skid down the rankings. And a lot of these other teams are very, very capable of getting draws and wins. Wolves, for example, I mean, look at them. They're a massive outlier in the top 8 where they don't score any goals, but they also don't concede many. And Brighton is almost like a slightly, I guess, more refined version, I would say, where they have been a bit more ambitious in certain games, but overall don't score too many goals themselves. Don't forget to like. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, MOHM Plays. Really appreciate that. What website is this? I'm actually using FBref. You want to ask about Chelsea defense. First part of the new season was amazing. Less goals conceded, but later, almost every game they receive a goal or more. You were asking what happens to Chelsea defense. So I think several things, right? So I think Chilwell was a big miss from a defensive point of view. It's about structures as well. I think also the period where there were constant injuries between, I think Kovacic has been a big miss. So I would say their midfield has been tasked with breaking down a lot of plays. So for example, if you look at Kovacic, Eddie, is it worth having Ronaldo on a wild card? Yes, especially but basically the idea if you go for Ronaldo on a wild card this week is if you have the ability to, let's say, roll the transfer, you can then maybe go for Salah by 24, and that would be my ideal plan. Maybe Ronaldo these 2 weeks and then go for Salah immediately. And let's say if Salah comes back or he's injured, then at least you can just ride Ronaldo until 28. That's not a problem. But yeah, just going back to the point in Chelsea defense, I think, yeah, so they had a long period where they had to play players like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's not so defensively adept, and they had a lot of injuries. I think the Chilwell is a little bit of a miss because I think positionally he's much better defensively than Alonso. You'll see that Alonso, I think he gave away maybe 1 or 2 penalties, maybe gave away a goal as well. And whilst I wouldn't say Chilwell is a fantastic individual defender, he's at least positionally much more adept. And then part of the reason why I think Chelsea are successful in games is how well they're able to retain possession. And as I said, with the midfielders where Kante and Jorginho and Kovacic were all playing maybe under stress, under injury, then that was really tough. But overall, I think people have also found a way to deal with Chelsea's kind of 3-back structure, and they are no longer giving Chelsea as much width as they used to. So if you see teams like Watford, for example, they press very early before Chelsea's able to kind of transition the ball onto the fullbacks. So it's a mix of that too. But I think Chelsea have enough players to hopefully kind of get out of that situation. And Reece James, him being injured is going to be a big miss too, because I think he is much more dynamic than Azpilicueta as a right wing back. So we'll see what happens. What are my plans for Lowton? I don't actually have Lowton in my team, but maybe if there's a triple game week in the future, I'll probably get Lowton in my team. I actually ended up going for Cody. I wonder if my team has loaded. No, it hasn't. But I have Cody in my team as opposed to Lowton, just because I kind of prefer the long-term permanency of my team. And yeah. Oh well, guys, I think that's going to be it. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Hope you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys as soon as possible. Take care, guys.